Hello friends, welcome to Diploma Geeks. In this video, let us discuss the electrochemistry concept thoroughly and let us have a look at some of the important terms that are related to the electrochemistry, and we get to know about some of the important theories that involved in the electrochemistry. As we start with the important terms that are involved in the electrochemistry, that includes the first one is the we need to know what is meant by first. Basically, we need to know what is meant by electrochemistry. Electrochemistry, in the sense, it is the branch of chemistry that deals with the relation between the electrical and the chemical energy is said to be electrochemistry. That, in the sense, when electrical energy get transferred into chemical energy and the chemical energy convert into electrical energy, the conversion of the chemical energy into electrical and vice versa, chemical into electrical, that is called as the study is called as the electrochemistry. And as if we look at different types of important terms involved in the electrochemistry, that includes we need to know what is meant by a conductor. The conductor, in the sense, it is a material or a substance that can allow electricity to flow through it, is called as a conductor. And we can say that this allowing of electricity is just because of it allows the electrons to flow easily into it and from one atom to another atom, that is called as an conductor, which allows the electricity to flow through it. And also conductors can allow transmit of heat, light, and from one source to another source, it can transfer heat energy and light energy. So that is also called as a conductor. And as if we look at the different types of conductor, that includes the metallic, or we can also say that these conductors are electronic conductors. And there is another type of conductor that includes electrolytic conductors, or we can also say that ionic conductors. The metallic conductors, in the sense, it is a conductor that conduct electricity due to flow of electrons. That, in the sense, the flow of negatively charged particles. That at that point of view, the conductors are called as the metallic conductors or the electronic conductors. So, as the in metallic conductors, as the temperature increases, the conductivity will be decreases. In case of metallic conductors, as the temperature increases and the conductivity will be decreases, whereas the electrolytic conductors or the ionic conductors, which are called as the ionic conductors, it is a conductor that conduct electricity due to the movement of ions, in the sense, the positive or negatively charged particles. So ions includes the positive or negatively charged particles. So the net charge due to this happens is because of the loss or gain of electrons. So we can say that the electrolytic or ionic conductors are those which transfer the electricity due to transfer of matter. And in the case of the electrolytic conductors or the ionic conductors, the conductivity will be increases because of the increase in temperature. As the temperature increases, the conductivity will be increases. So we can say that best examples for the whereas the metallic or the electronic conductors, the electronic conductors include the examples of metals, boilers, copper, and aluminum, whereas the electrolytic conductors or the ionic conductors includes the solutions of like acids or bases, or it also includes the fused salts. So these are the two basic different types of conductors. And if we see that silver, which is also called as Ag, silver is the highest electrical conductivity, which is it is a metal which shows the highest level of electrical conductivity from all different types of metals. It's called as a silver. And if we look at the different types of non electrolytes, in the sense, the substance that do not conduct electricity, either in the case of aqueous solution or in case of the molten state. So if it does not conduct electricity in the case of aqueous solution or molten state, it is called as a non electrolytes. The best example for the non electrolytes includes that sugar, or we can also say that ethanol, or alcohol, or it also includes urea. So these are the best examples for the non electrolytes, which will not conduct electricity due to the flow of electrons. So if we look at the next important theory, that is the electrolytic dissociation, that is the Arrhenius theory of electrolytic dissociation. And as if we look at the Arrhenius theory, that also called as the theory of electrolytic dissociation, it states that when an electrolyte, the electrolyte in the sense it's a substance that produces an electrically conducting solution when it get dissolved in a polar solvent. So when the electrolyte get dissolved in the polar solvent, it produces the electrical conductivity in the solution, such as water. If we consider polar solvent as a water, so when the electrolyte get dissolved in the solution, it creates the electrical conductivity in the solution. So by dissolving or melting, it will get split into it will get split into charged particles. So the charged particles are called as ions, which will be positively charged particles are called as the cations, and whereas negatively charged particles are called as the anions. From this we can say that the total charge of, as the electrolyte got splitted up into the positive and negative charges, the total charge of cation will be approximately equal to the total charge of anion. So we can understand that it means the solution is electrically neutral because of the charge of the cation is equals to the charge of the anion, that in the sense the solution is electrically neutral. By this we can say that this process is called as ionization. And we need to know one thing, that basically the conductivity of aqueous solution is of an electrolyte is due to the number of ions present in it. Because of the number of ions present in a solution, we can say the conductivity of the aqueous solution. By this we can see that this solution, this number of ions will be depend upon the one thing, that is the degree of dissociation. The degree of dissociation of electrolyte. It means that it is denoted with symbol alpha. It is called as the number of ionized molecules by the total number of molecules present in the solution. So this is the degree of dissociation. By this we can say that an electrolyte solution is a solution that generally consists of ions or atoms or molecules which are lost or gained electrons, and is electrically conductive. So the best example for the electrolyte solution we can consider as NaCl solution. So when a solution dissociate in water to form ions is called as the electrolyte. So by this we can say that electrolyte is a solute that dissociate in water to form ions is called as a electrolyte. And the degree of dissociation, which is the alpha, it get increases with dilution, and it can also get increases by increase in temperature. By this we can say that the alpha is basically depends on three things, that is nature of the solvent, that is the solvent with a high dielectric constant shows the high alpha value, and the another thing is the alpha with rise in dilution. So these both things decide the value of alpha, that is the degree of dissociation of an electrolyte. By this we get to know the theory of electrolytic dissociation. Let us have a look at what is meant by electrolysis. And now, as if you look at the process of electrolysis, it is a process that the passing of direct electric current through a electrolyte that produces a chemical reaction, and by the chemical reaction it decomposes the material is called as the electrolysis. And we can say that the main components that include in the process of electrolysis includes basically three main components, that are electrolyte, electrode, electrodes and the power, the external power. These are the three main sources that are required to attain the electrolysis process. From this we can say that the electrolysis process is basically carried out in electrolytic cell. These three main components together form a electrolytic cell in which the electrolysis process will be carried out. In this electrolytic cell, the different types of reactions takes place that will be taken as anode. At anode and at cathode, there are two different types of reactions takes place. At anode, the loss of electrons takes place, and at cathode, the gaining of electrons. That in the sense it attracts the electrons. That in the sense at anode the electrons leave the electrolytic cell, and at cathode the electrons enter the electrolytic cell is called as the anode and the cathode. So we can say that the losing of electrons is called as the reaction that occurs at anode is called as the oxidation, that is losing of electrons. The losing of electrons is called as oxidation, and the gaining of electrons is called as the reduction. As we seen that only when the electrolytic cell consists of anode and cathode, the reaction takes place and the deposition of material takes place. But when in case of when we replace the electrodes with and different electrode, that is the inert electrode. When this inert electrode is an electrode that can serve only as a source or a sink, that in the sense it do not react with the electrolyte. So as it do not react with electrolyte, it will not deposit any material, so it will not act as a electrolytic cell. By this we can say that the best example for the inert electrodes includes the graphite. The best example for the inert electrodes includes graphite, platinum, and gold and rhodium. So these materials cannot be used in the process of electrolysis for the reaction and for the deposition of material. So because of using this material, we can say that when inert electrodes exist in the electrolysis cell, the decomposition of material will not take place. By this we can say that let us see some of the important uses by the process of this electrolysis. This electrolysis process can be used in the production of metals and non-metals such as aluminium, magnesium, and calcium, and fluorine, and further many different types of metals and non-metals can be produced by the process of electrolysis. And it can also be used in the preparation of hydrogen from renewable resources, and it is also used for preparation of NaOH. It is also used for preparation for it is also used for electroplating. So we can use the electrolysis process for different ways. And now if we look at the Faraday's law of electrolysis, it explains that electrolysis process in detail. That in the sense that it explains the electrolysis process as the first law of Faraday's and the second law of the Faraday's. By this we can say that the first law of Faraday's first law explains that during electrolysis as the reactions takes place and the deposition of material takes place, and the material which is deposited during the electrolysis will be directly proportional to the amount of current that is passed, can be stated by the Faraday's first law. That in the sense the amount of material deposited is omega, which is measured in grams. The amount of material that is deposited is measured in terms of grams, will be directly proportional to the amount of current that is electricity supplied during the reaction, during the electrolysis process, that is measured in coulombs. By this it states that the amount of substance that deposited during the electrolysis process is directly proportional to the electricity passed through the electrolysis process. From this we can say that as the amount of substances deposited is directly proportional to electricity passed, if you look at the electricity, it is equals to Ct. We can write it as Ct, that in the sense C is the current in amperes, and whereas t is the time in seconds. By this, as we remove the proportionality constant, the amount of substance that is deposited will become equals to ECT. The during electrolysis process, the amount of substance that is deposited will be equals to ECT. ECT in the sense where E is the electrochemical equivalent. Electrochemical equivalent. That in the sense it is measured in terms of gram per coulomb. By this we can say that electrochemical equivalent is the amount of substance that is deposited during 1 coulomb of electricity by the passage of 1 coulomb. By the passage of 1 coulomb of electricity is passed through the solution, at that time what amount of substance will be deposited is called as the electrochemical equivalent. And if you look at the Faraday's second law, the Faraday's second law states that when the amount of substances formed due to passage of Avogadro's number of, that in the sense Avogadro number of the electrons, which is Avogadro number in the sense 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23 number of electrons when passed through the circuit, at that point of view the amount of substance deposited will be directly proportional to the electrochemical equivalent. It will be directly proportional to the chemical equivalent. That in the sense the amount of substances that deposited in the electrolytic cell will be directly proportional to the chemical equivalent. That in the sense when number of equivalents, that is a 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23 number of electrons passed, at that point of view the material will deposited will be equals to directly proportional to chemical equivalent. That in the sense the charge of Avogadro's equivalent number of electrons will be equals to 96,500 coulombs. By this we can say that the charge that is passed through the circuit will be 96,500 coulombs, which is also equals to the Faraday. 1 Faraday equals to 96,500 coulombs. When this amount of current will be passed through the circuit, at that time the amount of material deposited will be directly proportional to the chemical equivalent. By this we can say that if you look at the relation between the chemical equivalent and the electrochemical equivalent, the chemical equivalent is E. From this we can say that chemical equivalent equals to 96,500 coulombs into electrochemical equivalent, that is E, in which we can state that the relation as we can see this between the chemical equivalent, electrochemical equivalent and the chemical equivalent. As we see that from first law, omega is equals to ECT, is the amount of substance that is deposited during the electrolysis by passing of 1 coulomb of electricity. And whereas if you look at the second law states that omega is equals to, second law states that E is equals to 96,000, that is Faraday, 1 Faraday into E. From this we can gain an equation, that is E equals to the electrochemical equivalent will be equals to chemical equivalent by 1 Faraday. This is the relation that we can obtain from the electrochemical equivalent and the chemical equivalent. Now let us see the relation in terms of atomic weight between the electrochemical equivalent and the chemical equivalent. Now if you look at the previous relation in terms of atomic weight, we can state that the omega, which is the amount of substance deposited, will be equals to ACT by ZF. That in the sense where A is the atomic weight and Z is the valency. By this we can understand the relation between the electrochemical equivalent and the chemical equivalent in terms of the atomic weight. Other way of representation can be will be equals to E, which is equivalent weight, will be equals to atomic weight by valency. This can also be written as A by Z. So these are the two different ways we can represent the electrochemical equivalent and the chemical equivalent in terms of atomic weight. Now let us look at the what is meant by electrochemical cell. Now let us know about the electrochemical cell. The electrochemical cell, in the sense, it is a cell that it's a device that can generate electrical energy from the chemical reaction occurs in it, and we can say that it is a device that is capable of converting electrical energy into the chemical energy. It can convert the electrical energy into chemical energy, and vice versa, it can also convert the chemical energy into electrical energy. So the conversion of electrical to chemical and chemical to electrical, this type of cell is called as a electrochemical cell. On this basis, there are two different types of cells. That is the, if you look at the galvanic cell, it is a cell. It can also be called as voltaic cell. By this we can say that the galvanic cell or the voltaic cell or electrochemical cell, it is a cell that is capable of generating electrical energy by chemical reaction, and this happens by the generation of electrical energy by the chemical reaction is happens by the oxidation reactions. Oxidation and reduction occurs in the cell. From this we can say that the oxidation, which is loss of electrons, takes place at anode in the galvanic cell, whereas the reduction, which is gaining of electrons, takes place at cathode. From this we can say that the anode is a negative electrode, and whereas the cathode is a positive electrode. By this, the electrochemical cell that has two half cells which will be connected by a salt bridge. Why we use this salt bridge? In the sense, the salt bridge will be filled with, we usually filled with the agar agar gel, and with it will be filled with KCl, that is potassium chloride, and NH4NO3, that is ammonia nitrate, and it will be also will be a combination of KNO3, that is potassium nitrate. So we can use this salt bridge because of the purpose of the salt bridge is basically to keep the solution electrically neutral. As we use the anode and the cathode, the solution must be neutral. So for that purpose, to keep the solution electrically neutral and allows free flow of electrons in the form of ions, so the solution should be neutral. So for that purpose we use the salt bridge. This galvanic cell or the electrolytic cell can be exist in two forms. That is the forms of the galvanic cell includes the primary galvanic cell, and the second one is the secondary galvanic cell. The primary, in the sense, it is a battery that can be used once and discharged or not recharged with electricity, and it cannot be reused, is the primary type of galvanic cell. The best example for the primary galvanic cell is dry cell, whereas the secondary type of galvanic cell includes that it is a cell that can recharge after use. So this type of secondary galvanic cell, the best example is electrical batteries. These are the two different types of forms of galvanic cell that will be exist. So that is the primary and the secondary galvanic cell. Now let us look at what is meant by electrode potential. And now if we look at the electrode potential that is denoted with symbol E, we can state that electrode potential as that if you look at that, when we dip a metal When we dip a metal in a solution, if this is a metal which is dipped in a solution, as we dip the metal in a solution containing its own ions and in that solution, and at that time the tendency or the potential of the electrode which is a metal to lose or gain electrons will be determined. That one thing is called as the electrode potential. So the tendency to lose or gain electrons is called as that determined by the electrode potential. We can say that the tendency to which the tendency of the electrode to gaining of electrons is called as reduction potential, and whereas the tendency of electrode to lose electrons is called as the oxidation potential. And we can say that this electrode potential, that is E, basically depends on three things. That includes, the one is the concentration of electrolyte, that is concentration of electrolyte in the sense, as we seen before, the electrolysis process happens because of the ions present in the solution. So the concentration of electrolyte is the one reason for the electrode potential, and there is another reason for the electrode potential is nature or nature of purity of the electrode. The purity of the metal which we dip in the solution, its nature will determine the electrode potential. And there is another thing that determines the electrode potential, that is the temperature. The temperature determines the electrode potential, and by this we can say that electrode potential of a, in case of a pure metal, in case of a pure metal, the electrode potential which is in contact with its own ions, that is unit activity, and that in the sense concentration is 1 molar, with the concentration of 1 molar, and at 25 degrees of temperature, 25 degrees centigrade of temperature, that type of electrode potential is called as standard electrode potential. This is denoted by symbol E naught. And as if you look at the EMF, that is the electromotive force, it is the potential difference between two electrodes which makes the cause of flow of a current from one electrode which is at a higher potential, to the another electrode which is at lower potential. So by the by the by the potential difference between the two electrodes which is at higher potential and the lower potential makes the flow of current between two different electrodes is called as the electromotive force, which is also called as EMF. And this EMF value is basically measured in terms of volts, and the EMF of a cell is the difference between the reduction potential and oxidation potential. That in the sense, the EMF of a cell is the difference between the reduction potential of the reduction half cell and the oxidation potential of the oxidation half cell. Hence we can say that if EMF of a cell, if EMF is positive, that is just generates electricity, and in the case of if EMF is negative, that is the electromotive force is negative in the cell, that reverse reaction takes place in the cell. That means there will be no any reaction, there will be no generation of electricity, it will make some reactions, reverse reaction. So we can say that for best galvanic cell, the EMF value should be always positive. It should be maximum, it should be positive, and should be highest value of the positive value. By this we can say that EMF of a battery will be lies between 1.2 volts to 1.54 volts. So guys, this is how we discuss the electrochemistry concept. So by this concept we just wind up the section. So for more latest information and interesting concept and updates, subscribe to Diploma Geeks. Thank you.